You weren't meant to be here yet, not in this moment, not this early, and certainly not with this much clarity. But here you are, reading these words. And you know, deep in the marrow of your being, that this isn't just another message. No, this is not content. This is permission for a plan that was once hidden from you to start revealing itself. Let me be clear. This message wasn't meant to arrive today, but the script of heaven just flipped, and something sacred broke open in your favor. This isn't a coincidence. This is a cosmic announcement dressed in subtlety. You've just been activated, and not everyone will understand what that means. Some will doubt it. Some will dismiss it. But you feel it. You feel that slow unraveling of everything you thought was solid. The structure is bending. The silence is cracking. The old timeline is dissolving. Chosen one, come close. You didn't find this message. It found you, because something in your energy signaled to the heavens, I'm ready, even if I don't feel it yet. And when that signal was received, the order was given. Tell them now, even if it's early. Yes, you were supposed to discover this much later, after certain trials, certain meetings, certain losses, but something shifted. You moved through your pain faster than predicted. You healed in secret. You believed without evidence. You stayed soft when life tried to harden you, and the divine took notice. This is not a congratulation. This is a commission. Because now that the plan has changed, your role has expanded. The script didn't just skip ahead, it reconfigured around you. You are not behind, you are ahead, and it feels disorienting, doesn't it? The people around you haven't changed, but somehow you don't belong anymore. The conversations feel empty, the places feel too tight. The plans that once excited you now feel irrelevant. Because they are. You were aligned with a version of reality that was always meant to expire. You just didn't know the expiration date had arrived. Until now. Pause. Let that settle. Because this is not just a moment. It's a veil lifting. You are not who you were a week ago. And that's not poetic exaggeration. It's spiritual truth. The whispers that kept you company in the dark. They weren't your imagination. They were echoes from a divine council meeting held on your behalf. You weren't invited, but you were the subject. And the decision was unanimous. They're ready. Reveal the shift. So here you are, standing in the soft ruins of your old plan, wondering why everything that made sense suddenly doesn't. It's not confusion, it's recalibration. The plan didn't collapse. It transformed because you did. Read that again. This isn't the moment to fight for the familiar. This is the moment to fall into the frequency of your becoming. And I know you want a map. You want coordinates. You want someone to tell you what this all means. But if you were meant to understand it fully, you wouldn't have been chosen. You weren't chosen because you know what to do. You were chosen because you're willing to walk forward even when you don't. That's what sets you apart. Not certainty, but sacred risk. You see, heaven doesn't choose the loudest or the flashiest. It chooses the ones who whisper yes in the dark. The ones who stay kind when no one's watching. The ones who grieve and still get up. The ones who dare to outgrow their past without needing applause for it. That's you. That's why the plan couldn't stay the same, because the version of you the old plan was written for doesn't exist anymore. And if you try to keep living by that blueprint, it will feel heavier and heavier until you break under the weight of a timeline that no longer fits your soul. Let it go, let it unravel, not because you failed, but because you finally made room for the truth. This is where most people turn back, where they cling harder to what was, mistaking the ache of expansion for the pain of punishment. Don't make that mistake. The ache is holy. The stretch is sacred. You're not falling apart, you're unfolding. And this unfolding doesn't require explanation. It only requires permission. So give it to yourself. Give yourself permission to not understand this yet. Give yourself permission to follow the pull, even if the world says you're being irrational. Give yourself permission to walk differently, speak differently, show up differently, because you are different. And pretending you're not just to keep others comfortable? That's a betrayal of the very light you were sent to carry. The plan changed because you could hold more than it first required. It wasn't a test, it was an upgrade. And the people who feel uneasy around you now, they're not reacting to what you've done, they're reacting to what you've become. Don't shrink to soothe their confusion. Don't dim to fit their frame. You're not supposed to fit anymore. You're supposed to rise, chosen one. Something eternal has been unlocked in you. And now the evidence of that awakening is starting to surface in subtle, sacred ways. The numbers, the dreams, the strange sense of déjà vu, the random clarity that hits you in silence. Those aren't accidents, they're confirmations. You've been given access to a frequency most people spend lifetimes trying to reach. Not because you demanded it, but because you endured enough to finally hold it. So now the choice is yours, to return to the path everyone understands, or to walk forward on the road that makes no sense to anyone but your soul. You already know the answer. You wouldn't be here if you didn't. Now breathe. Stay with me. This isn't the whole message. It's only the beginning, but beginnings have power, especially when they're born from endings you didn't expect. There's more, much more. The shift you've stepped into isn't just about you, it's about what your life will activate in others. It's about the legacy your yes is creating in realms you've never seen. You're not just being given a new plan, you're becoming the new plan. So walk slowly, speak clearly, and hold this moment like the sacred scroll it is. The rest is coming. You were beginning to settle, weren't you? The silence started to feel familiar. The waiting room of your life, once filled with questions, had quieted just enough for you to stop asking. You had made peace with the pace. You thought maybe this in-between was your destination. But something began to stir, not in your mind, not even in your emotions. It started somewhere deeper, a flicker, a restlessness, an unnamed urgency that wouldn't leave. You didn't ask for it, you didn't call it in, but there it was, growing in the background, pulling threads loose in your life. And that's when the interruption began. Not the loud kind, not the crash and burn kind, the holy kind, the kind that doesn't knock. It enters quietly, respectfully, yet undeniably. Chosen one. This wasn't just a moment of insight. It was a divine interception, a breaking open of the plan you thought you understood, not because it was wrong, but because your spirit outgrew the structure it was originally given. You didn't miss the path. The path shifted. Heaven saw something you couldn't see yet. A readiness in you that even you hadn't noticed. A strength birthed through years of invisible endurance, and when heaven sees that, it moves, silently, strategically, sovereignly. So when people ask you what changed, why you've been different lately, tell them the truth. You don't know, not entirely. Because what's moving through your life now isn't being explained in words. It's being written in energy. You've stepped into a new vibration, not by effort, but by permission. And that permission was granted in stillness. You didn't earn this through perfection. You accessed it through alignment. That's why it feels both terrifying and familiar, because some part of you always knew this was coming. You just weren't supposed to know it yet. Until now. Let me tell you something that most won't understand. Heaven sometimes accelerates the plan, not because you're ahead, but because you're finally ready to stop walking in circles. What you once called delay was actually sacred protection. You were never late. You were being shielded, because if you had stepped into this version of the plan before now, you would have carried too much that wasn't truly yours. Old fears, false loyalties, unnecessary burdens, but those things have been burning off lately, haven't they? People walking away without explanation, desires crumbling before they fully formed. opportunities vanishing as quickly as they appeared. It looked like rejection, but it was resurrection. Something in you was being reborn. And rebirth is rarely clean. It's messy, it's disorienting, it's quiet, because heaven doesn't need to announce the shift to the world. It only needs to whisper it to your soul. And when you hear that whisper, when you really hear it, you can never go back. That's why the old life feels foreign now. That's why what once felt safe now feels suffocating. That's why your old dreams feel too small. They weren't lies. They were stepping stones. But this is the staircase, and every step will feel different. Not because you lack direction, but because you're walking a route that hasn't been mapped before. Chosen one, you've entered uncharted territory, and that's not a metaphor, that's a mandate. The ground beneath your feet is responding to your movement in real time. The walls you once ran into are vanishing. The doors you couldn't open are now unlocking from the inside. But here's the part most won't tell you. That kind of access changes you. And not everyone will know how to love the version of you that comes with keys. That's okay. Some relationships were built for the version of you that needed permission. They won't survive the version that walks in authority. Let them go. Let the mourning happen if it needs to. Let the release be holy. Let your silence speak louder than explanation, because what's rising in you now doesn't require translation. It requires trust. You're not being asked to prove your alignment. You're being invited to embody it. And embodiment is quiet. It doesn't shout, it doesn't convince, it simply becomes. You are becoming, and that becoming is sacred. It will strip you, it will sharpen you, it will silence you. But it will also show you the parts of yourself you didn't know were waiting for an invitation to rise. This is the moment you realize you are no longer seeking the plan, you are carrying it. Not in a binder, not in a journal, in your being. The codes have shifted from paper to presence. You don't have to understand it all, but you must honor what you feel, even when you can't explain it, even when others mock it, even when nothing around you confirms it. Your knowing is enough. And if you're waiting for someone to validate your awakening, you'll wait forever, because the awakening wasn't theirs. It was yours. You're not crazy. You're not impulsive. You're not unstable. You're becoming spiritually fluent in a language few people are willing to learn. And that fluency, it's going to cost you. It will cost you comfort. It will cost you applause. It will cost you being understood, but it will buy you freedom. The kind of freedom that makes others question their cages. The kind of freedom that doesn't need an audience to feel real. That's what you're walking into now. So, take a moment. Pause here. Feel what's happening, not outside of you, inside. There's a signal being sent from your soul to the heavens. It doesn't require words, only readiness, and you are ready, even if you don't feel it, even if part of you still clings to the old life, even if you still doubt how this all ends. You're ready, because the divine doesn't reveal the shift unless you're ready to hold it, and you are. The trembling is not weakness, it's initiation. The tears are not failure, they're release. You don't need to understand what's happening to honor it. You just need to stop pretending it's not. This shift is real. This moment is divine. This timing is precise. Chosen one. The path didn't abandon you. It opened. And now, all that's left is for you to step in. It didn't happen all at once. No siren, no announcement, no grand moment to mark the collapse, just silence, just a slow unraveling, just a series of days where the things that used to feel like home started feeling foreign. You didn't realize it at first. You thought maybe you were tired, maybe you were overthinking, maybe this was just a passing cloud, but the cloud stayed, and under it, the pieces began to shift, not out loud, but inward, subtly, sacredly. And now, here you are, standing at the edge of what once felt eternal, realizing it was only ever temporary. Chosen one, there is no shame in what's slipping through your fingers. You are not failing, you are being freed. Not all endings wear the face of disaster. Some look like disinterest, some feel like detachment, some sound like silence from those who once couldn't go a day without your voice. But don't panic, don't grasp. Let it fall. Because the life you're grieving wasn't meant to go with you, and if you try to carry it forward, you'll feel heavier with every step. Not because it's wrong, but because it's expired. There are people who were never meant to stay past the last version of you. There are roles you were never meant to wear into your arrival. There are beliefs that cannot breathe in the air you're now stepping into. This is divine subtraction, and it hurts. Not because something is being taken, but because something sacred is making room. You've asked for new, you've cried for clarity, you've begged for purpose. This is the cost, the disorientation, the in-between, the space where you're no longer who you were, but not yet sure who you're becoming. That space, that's sacred. It's the womb of reinvention. It's the altar where your false selves burn away. Don't rush it, don't despise it, and whatever you do, don't try to rebuild what's been deconstructed by divine order. You prayed for a higher path. This is it. You just didn't know it would come dressed as confusion, but that confusion is not chaos. It's clarity in disguise, because what you're feeling isn't uncertainty, it's unfamiliarity. And unfamiliar doesn't mean wrong, it means new. Let your spirit catch up to the truth your soul already knows. The version of life that once fit you perfectly no longer does. Not because it failed you, but because you've grown, and not just in the visible ways. You've grown in the places no one claps for. In the midnight decisions, in the quiet choices, in the moments when giving up would have made more sense. But you stayed. You stayed. You believed, you loved, you forgave, you trusted when nothing around you validated that trust. And that's why heaven moved. Not to reward your effort, but to honor your endurance. This is not the collapse of your life. This is the cracking open of your potential. The shedding hurts, yes, but look closely. What's falling away now was never the core. It was scaffolding, temporary, supportive, necessary for a time. But now that the structure is solid, the scaffolding must go. This is why the things that once held you up now feel like they're holding you back. This is why the voices that once guided you sound quieter now. Because you're not meant to be guided in the same way anymore. You've stepped into spiritual fluency. You don't need translations. You understand the language of movement, of timing, of knowing. And that knowing, it's getting louder. You hear it in the pauses. You feel it in the resistance. You recognize it in the gentle nudges that say, "This is done. Let it go." Chosen one, the door isn't closing because you did something wrong. It's closing because you fulfilled your assignment in that space. The chapter is finished. Stop rereading it, trying to find a new sentence. There's nothing left there for you, not because you're unworthy, but because you've already extracted the wisdom. And now you're being repositioned, not punished. Repositioned. Your location in life, spiritually, emotionally, relationally, is shifting. The coordinates have changed. That's why your spirit feels restless. That's why the places that once brought you peace now feel crowded. That's why the rhythm you once flowed in now feels out of sync. You're not out of alignment. You're being recalibrated to something higher, to something more refined, to something only your future self can fully carry. And yes, it's lonely here. Don't lie to yourself. Don't romanticize the stretch. Say it. This hurts, this confuses, this costs more than you expected. But also, this is sacred. This is chosen ground. This is holy space. This is the silent blessing no one talks about, because most people flee this part of the path. They can't stand the stillness. They mistake the quiet for abandonment. They try to rebuild what's burning, but not you. You're built for this. You were never meant to repeat what's already been done. You were meant to break pattern. You were meant to shatter tradition. You were meant to blaze a trail with footprints no one has seen before, and that kind of movement, it begins here, in the letting go, in the closing of hands that once clung tightly to what felt safe. Safety is not your assignment anymore. Sovereignty is. You're not being asked to be logical. You're being asked to be obedient, and obedience sometimes looks like walking away with no explanation. You'll want to justify it. You'll want to explain it. You'll want to make everyone comfortable with your yes. But chosen one, this isn't about their comfort. This is about your calling. You don't owe the world an explanation. You owe your soul a commitment. So stay committed to the feeling, to the pull, to the new rhythm rising in your chest. Even if your mind doesn't understand it, even if your heart aches from the loss, even if you have to walk alone for a while, because eventually what's meant for you in this new frequency will recognize you, it will find you, not because you searched, but because you surrendered. That's the key. Not effort, alignment, not control, receptivity, not force. Flow. This is the new law over your life now. The old one served you well. But this is the law of resonance. If it doesn't resonate, it doesn't stay. If it doesn't flow, it doesn't grow. If it doesn't expand you, it's not an answer. You're learning to walk away from almost right. You're learning to say no to good enough. You're learning that waiting on what aligns is worth more than settling for what's available. And that lesson is going to set the tone for everything else that's coming. Because this shift, this holy, confusing, stretching shift, is not the end. It's the clearing. The soil is being turned, the old roots removed, the rocks displaced, so that what's about to grow has room. Chosen one, you are that soil, and something magnificent is being planted in you. Stay soft, stay open, stay sacred. The collapse was not your undoing, it was your becoming. You didn't apply for this. You didn't ask to be called forward. You didn't raise your hand and say, "Choose me," but you were chosen anyway. And now, something is being handed to you that you don't feel ready for, but are more prepared to carry than you know. This isn't a burden. It's a baton, and you weren't summoned to run with it because you were the fastest. You were summoned because you were faithful. Faithful when no one was watching. Faithful when the doors stayed closed. Faithful when all you had was a whisper in the dark and a heart that wouldn't quit. Chosen one, the plan didn't just change, it accelerated. You're standing in a timeline that was meant for a future version of you, and yet here it is, early, unexpected, unexplained, because heaven doesn't operate by human clocks. It moves on readiness. And your soul, it's ready, even if your thoughts haven't caught up yet. Even if your body still shakes, even if your surroundings haven't shifted to match what's stirring within, the energy knows, and that knowing is more trustworthy than any circumstance. So when you feel it, that unshakable sense that something massive has begun, don't run from it. Lean in. It's not an illusion. It's not wishful thinking. It's the vibration of destiny stepping into alignment with your breath. You are not imagining this. The pressure, the urgency, the magnetism pulling you away from what's familiar, that's not confusion, that's recognition. Your spirit recognizes what your mind is only beginning to see. The old season is complete, not ruined, not rejected. Complete, and when heaven calls something complete, there is no going back. The temptation will be there to fix, to explain, to revisit. But what has been divinely closed must remain closed. You are not being punished. You are being repositioned. You're not being demoted. You're being refined. This is not a loss, it's a rerouting. And the path you are now stepping onto isn't just unfamiliar, it's sacred. Why? Because you are no longer walking a pre-written story. You're co-authoring it now. Heaven is writing with you, not just for you. Every choice you make matters. Every yes you whisper matters. Every no you declare in silence matters. Because this assignment, it doesn't belong to the crowd. It belongs to the called. And the called? They walk differently. They move slower, not out of hesitation, but out of reverence. They listen more, not because they're unsure, but because they're in sync. They speak less, not to withhold truth, but because their silence carries weight. You've entered that phase now, where your very presence speaks louder than your words, where your energy arrives before you do, where your name is being spoken in rooms you haven't entered yet, not because of status, but because of substance. You were refined in secret, and now the world is beginning to feel the gravity of your preparation. They don't understand it, they won't be able to explain it, but they will feel it. Something different walks with you now, something ancient, something royal, something holy, not a crown of ego, but a mantle of alignment. And with it comes a responsibility you didn't expect. To hold space, to hold truth, to hold the plan, even when others doubt it, dismiss it, or try to distort it. You're not here to convince them, you're here to carry it. The assignment is not to be understood, it's to be lived, and that requires something few are willing to give: obedience without explanation. Chosen one, you are being trusted with what others fear. You're being trusted to see beyond the illusion, to feel when others numb, to believe when others mock, to follow the inner compass even when it points away from the crowd. And no, it won't always be easy, but it will always be right, even when it's quiet, even when it's costly, even when you feel the ache of isolation. You are not alone. You are simply walking ahead of the revelation. What's been revealed to you now hasn't yet been spoken to those around you. Not because they are less, but because you are first. First in the sequence, first in the assignment, first in the field. You were trusted to go early so others could follow safely. So when they question you, when they say, "Why now? Why you? Why like this?" don't waste your energy explaining. Just walk. Your alignment will speak, your fruit will witness, your presence will confirm. Because what you're carrying now isn't visible yet, but it's real, and soon it will bloom. So stay rooted in your knowing, in your calling, in your quiet confidence. The world doesn't need another loud voice trying to be seen. It needs the unseen ones willing to become. And you, chosen one, you have become, not finished, but awakened, not arrived, but aware. And that awareness, it's everything, because from this point forward, your steps are not just your own. They are footsteps for others to follow. They are echoes for generations to hear. They are codes that unlock healing, freedom, and truth in those you may never meet. That is the weight of this plan. That is the beauty of this burden. It's not just about your destiny. It's about your lineage. It's about the future rewriting itself through your yes. You were never meant to carry this alone, but you were meant to carry it first. And that, beloved, is why the plan changed. Not to burden you, but to honor you. You've felt it, haven't you? The tension, the shift, the growing disconnect from people, places, and patterns that once felt permanent. It didn't start with an argument. It didn't come with a goodbye. But something sacred is being severed. Quietly, invisibly, irreversibly. You're not losing your life. You're losing what no longer belongs in it. And yes, it feels like loss, because the mind grieves what the spirit outgrows. But hear this clearly. You are not broken. You are being refined. Chosen one, you have entered a field of energy that no longer supports pretense. And anything in your life that was built on compromise, on fear, on the illusion of safety, is now crumbling, not as punishment, but as proof. Proof that the new frequency pulsing through your being is incompatible with your old survival systems. You don't respond the same. You don't tolerate the same. You don't even speak the same, because your soul has been retuned. And now, everything that is not in resonance must release itself. Let it. Let the old alliances dissolve. Let the silent exits happen. Let the closed doors remain shut. What is leaving now isn't your foundation, it's your filter. The filter that once blurred your worth, that told you to shrink so others could stay, that convinced you to earn what was already yours. That filter is gone, and with it go the connections that depended on your distortion. This is why people are pulling away, why they no longer recognize you, why they don't know how to speak to you anymore. They weren't speaking to the real you before, they were speaking to your mask. And now that the mask is gone, there's nothing left for them to hold on to. Don't take it personally. Your spirit didn't betray them. It just stopped performing, and performance was the price of their presence. But not anymore. You've stepped into alignment. And alignment doesn't beg, it doesn't chase, it doesn't convince. It attracts what resonates and repels what doesn't, without explanation. So let the repelling happen. Let it clear the space. Let it burn the bridges. Let it expose the quiet misalignments you tolerated for the sake of peace. Because true peace doesn't require distortion. It doesn't demand silence. It doesn't punish authenticity. What you're creating now can only be built on truth, and truth will always feel like a storm before it becomes shelter. You're in that storm now. But don't run from it. Don't rush through it. Let it strip you, let it free you, because on the other side of this shedding is a stillness you've never known. The kind of stillness that doesn't come from external calm, but from internal congruence, where your thoughts, your words, and your actions finally match your essence. That's where you're headed. And yes, it's lonely here, but it's not the loneliness of emptiness. It's the solitude of sovereignty, the quiet place where leaders are formed, where vision sharpens, where distractions dissolve. You're not being isolated, you're being insulated. Insulated from what would dilute you, insulated from what would detour you, insulated from what would delay the frequency that is now flowing through your life like electricity. And that frequency, it's not fragile, it's fierce. It doesn't whisper, it roars. It speaks in signs, in synchronicities, in dreams that feel like prophecies. It leads you without maps. It confirms without logic, and the more you trust it, the clearer it becomes. But the cost of that clarity? Confusion. For those who haven't heard what you've heard, they'll ask you to explain it. They'll demand timelines. They'll want reasons. You won't have them, not because you're lost, but because you're being led. There's a difference. You're not wandering. You're following the invisible, and what's invisible to them is undeniable to you. So stop trying to convince them of your path. Stop trying to make your transformation digestible. You weren't chosen to be understood. You were chosen to be aligned, and alignment isn't always visible, but it is always powerful. Chosen one, you are powerful. Not because of what you do, but because of who you've become, and who you've become. That's what heaven recognized before you did. That's why the plan changed. That's why it showed up early. That's why the pressure increased, because what you carry now requires more space, more silence, more seriousness. You can't keep walking like you're still in rehearsal. This is the main act. This is the unveiling. And even if you feel unprepared, even if you still battle doubt, even if part of you wishes for the safety of the former version, there is no going back. Not because you can't, but because you've tasted what's real now, and once you taste real, false can no longer satisfy. So don't resent the release. Don't grieve the people who only knew how to hold your past self. Don't try to bring them into a dimension they don't have access to. That's not cruelty, that's clarity. Clarity that says, I no longer have to prove I'm becoming, I simply have to become. And becoming is noisy. It disrupts routines, it shifts dynamics, it breaks agreements you made while you were still learning how to love yourself. You're not that learner anymore. You're the embodiment. You don't need permission. You are the permission. You don't need validation. You are the evidence. You don't need direction from others. You've become the compass. So move accordingly. Move with trust, move with truth, move with the frequency that freed you, and don't look back. What's ahead of you is sacred, and what's sacred requires separation, not forever, but for now. So the new can grow, so the roots can deepen, so the fruit can form without the weight of being seen too soon. Chosen one, you are forming, and when it's time to be seen, you won't have to announce it. Your alignment will walk into the room before you do, and they will feel it, even if they don't understand it, even if they can't explain it. They'll feel the shift. Because you are the shift. You've come far, farther than you realize, farther than most will ever know, because so much of your journey was invisible. It was never about noise. It was never about proof. It was always about persistence. And now, chosen one, you've reached the threshold, not of an ending, but of embodiment. This is not the part where you wait for a sign. This is the part where you become one. There is no turning back. Not because you're forbidden, but because the frequency of your soul no longer matches where you've been. You couldn't go back if you tried. The door isn't locked behind you. It's gone. Because what's ahead of you is so sacred, the past had to erase itself to make room. You were never walking toward a destination. You were becoming one. And now, the plan, you are it. You no longer follow alignment. You are alignment. You no longer ask for confirmation. You are the confirmation. You no longer wait for divine timing. You move as it. Because what once felt like separation is now union. The union between who you were and who you were always meant to remember. You are not discovering your path. You are remembering your design. And that design, it was never meant to blend in. It was never meant to be simple. It was never meant to be linear. It was encoded with contradiction, with collision, with transformation. So yes, your life has been confusing. Yes, your process has felt longer than others, harder than expected, quieter than you imagined. But that silence wasn't neglect. It was preparation. It was insulation from the noise that would have diluted your becoming. Because becoming isn't an event, it's a frequency shift. And your frequency has now reached a point that demands a new form, not just new results, a new identity. The you who once questioned everything now walks in knowing. The you who once begged for doors to open now commands them. The you who once apologized for shining now burns unapologetically, and the world it will notice, not because you shout, but because your presence will unsettle what's stagnant. It already has. You've seen it, the discomfort in others, the distance, the subtle resistance. It's not personal, it's prophetic. Your emergence carries a vibration that exposes what has been hiding, and when the light comes, shadows scatter. You are that light, not the kind that warms, the kind that awakens, the kind that calls sleeping destinies out of their caves, the kind that doesn't ask permission to rise, it just rises, and in doing so, gives others the courage to do the same. You are not the end of a story. You are a living permission slip for others to become. That's why you were chosen, not for comfort, but for impact, not to fit, but to fracture the falsehoods that kept people safe but small, to fracture the expectations that told you to be less, to fracture the patterns that repeated for generations, until you are the interruption. And because of that, the weight has been great, but you carried it not perfectly, not proudly, but honestly. And honesty was always the offering that heaven required. So now, a new realm opens. Not because you earned it, but because you endured for it. This isn't elevation by merit, it's elevation by resonance. You are now resonating with your original assignment, and the universe, it recognizes you again. Doors are opening not because you knocked, but because your energy is the key. What was once sealed is now calling you by name. Not a name they gave you, the name the stars know you by. The one that vibrates when you speak truth, the one that hums when you walk in purpose. You've walked through the fire, and now your steps are fire. You've been through the storm, and now you are the storm. You've cried for release, and now your breath releases others. This is who you are now, not a seeker, a carrier, not a student, an embodiment, not a hope, a home. Because others will find home in the atmosphere you carry. And that atmosphere, It's been forged in silence, in shadows, in surrender. Don't diminish it to make others comfortable. Don't dilute it so they'll stay. Don't apologize for the way your presence now shifts the room. You were never meant to be palatable. You were meant to be prophetic, and prophecy doesn't please. It pierces. You are a walking prophecy. And now that you've arrived at this frequency, everything must respond, not out of fear, out of recognition. This is where the blessings stored for your future begin to arrive in your now. Not because they're early, because you've caught up. Your inner world is no longer behind schedule. It's aligned, and alignment accelerates. So prepare yourself for sudden connections, sudden clarity, sudden collapsing of things that no longer match. You will see friendships end in a breath. You will feel old desires vanish like fog. Let it happen. This isn't loss, it's locking into truth. And truth doesn't leave room for what was built on illusion. Chosen one, you were never chasing destiny. You were remembering it, and now that memory is fully awake. It no longer whispers, it roars, and that roar is inside of you. It shakes timelines, it splits atmospheres, it awakens legacy. You're not here just to succeed. You're here to activate. You're here to bring things to life with your frequency. To change environments by walking into them. To alter realities by standing in your truth. And when you do, heaven listens, because heaven knows its own sound, and you've become an echo of it, not a mimic, a match. So from now on, walk as the match. Move like the frequency, speak like the signal, and if they don't understand, let them watch the fruit. You're not here to argue anymore. You're not here to defend the shift. You are the shift. And what's coming next? It doesn't require your effort. It requires your embodiment. Show up as it, and it will unfold. Let go of timelines. Let go of expectations. Let go of the need to control what was never yours to manage. This isn't about management. This is about movement, holy movement. That doesn't need a map. That doesn't need permission. That doesn't need applause. It just flows. And you, chosen one, are finally flowing. Not behind, not ahead. Right on time. This is the moment where you stop chasing what's already inside of you. This is the moment you realize you were never following the plan. You are the plan.